This video is not about the highest mountains on Earth. It's about the ones with the worst odds, peaks where reaching the summit means nothing, because survival is decided on the way down. By the end of this list, the danger is no longer a feeling. It's math. 7. Huascarán. Huascarán is not dangerous because it is difficult to climb. It is dangerous because it fails. Located in Peru's Cordillera Blanca, Huascarán is the highest mountain in the country, rising to 67 and 68 meters. It has been climbed many times, and unlike most mountains with a lethal reputation, its history is unusually well documented. What makes Huascarán different is not technical difficulty or extreme weather, but the scale and unpredictability of its collapses. The first clear warning came in 1962. A massive slab of ice and rock broke loose from the mountain's north face and accelerated down the valley below. Within moments, the town of Ranrahirca was buried. More than 4,000 people were killed. No climbers triggered the collapse. There was no major storm. The mountain simply failed. 8 years later, in 1970, Huascarán failed again, on a much larger scale. A magnitude 7.9 earthquake off the coast of Peru destabilized ice, snow, and rock high on the mountain. The resulting avalanche swept across the valley and buried the city of Yungay and surrounding villages. An estimated 2,000 people died within minutes. Entire communities were erased. From that point on, Huascarán was no longer seen as just a climbing objective, but as a geological threat. That same year, danger returned to the mountain itself. A Czechoslovak expedition on Huascarán's north side was struck by an avalanche. 14 climbers were killed, making it one of the deadliest single-team accidents in mountaineering history. Once again, the cause was not reckless climbing or extreme weather, but glacial instability. In the decades that followed, the pattern continued. In 2002, an avalanche buried 3 climbers high on the peak. One of them, American climber William Stamfel, remained missing for more than 20 years before his body emerged from the retreating glacier in 2024. In 2016, 4 more climbers were killed during descent when an avalanche swept across a commonly used route. Conditions that day were considered manageable until they weren't. The danger on Huascarán comes from the same sources every time: unstable tropical glaciers, massive seracs, and steep slopes that can collapse without warning. These failures do not require storms. They do not require mistakes. They simply happen. The Cordillera Blanca lies in a seismically active region, and internal stress within the mountain constantly reshapes its structure in ways humans cannot reliably predict. Huascarán is not the most technically difficult mountain in the world, but it has killed climbers, destroyed entire towns, and done so repeatedly across generations. Here, danger is not a matter of skill or experience. It is a matter of probability. And as this list continues, the margin for survival only gets smaller. 6. Rakaposhi. Huascarán kills without asking climbers to make a mistake. The next mountain is different. Here, the danger begins the moment you choose to keep going. Rakaposhi is not known for sudden disasters that wipe out towns. Its danger is quieter and far more personal. Rising to 7,788 meters in northern Pakistan, Rakaposhi towers above the Hunza Valley with one of the greatest vertical rises on Earth. From valley floor to summit, the mountain climbs nearly 5,800 meters over a remarkably short horizontal distance. That sheer relief makes Rakaposhi appear deceptively close and brutally steep. The mountain was first climbed in 1958 via the Northwest Ridge by British climbers Mike Banks and Tom Patey. Even that success came after repeated failures, and the descent was considered as dangerous as the ascent itself. From the beginning, Rakaposhi established a pattern. Reaching the summit was only half the problem. Unlike highly technical peaks, Rakaposhi's routes are defined by scale and exposure. Climbers must move for long periods through steep snowfields and beneath hanging glaciers. Camps are often positioned directly in avalanche paths, not because of poor planning, but because there are few alternatives. Retreat options diminish quickly once the upper mountain is reached. Weather adds another layer of risk. Rakaposhi sits directly in the path of moisture systems moving across the Karakoram. Storms can arrive with little warning, bringing heavy snowfall and strong winds that turn retreat into a race against exhaustion. In 1984, a Canadian expedition was struck by lightning high on the mountain, temporarily incapacitating climbers at extreme altitude, an uncommon but serious hazard that underscored how exposed the routes are. Because of these factors, successful ascents are rare. Long gaps often pass between attempts, and most expeditions turn back well below the summit. Rakaposhi does not build its reputation on frequent fatalities. Instead, it earns it through how consistently it defeats climbers, forcing retreats that become survival situations rather than planned descents. In 2019, Japanese climbers Kazuya Hiraishi and Kenro Nakajima completed a new route on Rakaposhi's south face, earning a Pialet d'Or. Even that achievement highlighted the exception rather than the rule. Clean ascents here are rare, and success does little to reduce the mountain's underlying risk. Rakaposhi is a mountain where danger is not concentrated in a single crux or exposed pitch. It is spread across the entire climb. Every step higher increases commitment, and every delay makes retreat more costly. Here, the primary hazard is not a single mistake, but the scale of the mountain itself. And as this list continues, the mountains ahead will take that same lack of margin and push it even further. 5. Masherbrum, K1. Rakaposhi defeats climbers through scale and exhaustion. The next mountain goes further. Here, progress itself becomes the problem. Masherbrum does not intimidate climbers with a single catastrophic feature. Its danger comes from how rarely anything works. Rising to 7,821 meters above the Hush Valley in Pakistan's Karakoram, Masherbrum was the first major peak measured during early surveys of the region. That is why it was labeled K1, years before K2 became famous. But its modern reputation has nothing to do with its name. It comes from decades of failure. Masherbrum was first climbed in 1960 by George Bell and Willy Unsild. What followed is more telling than the ascent itself. For long stretches afterward, well-equipped and highly experienced teams returned again and again, only to turn back. In many cases, expeditions failed to even reach the upper mountain. One reason is weather. Masherbrum sits in a part of the Karakoram known for long, persistent storm cycles. Teams have reported being pinned down for days or even weeks, unable to move higher, but also unable to descend safely. Progress stalls, supplies diminish, and exhaustion builds without any dramatic moment of failure. Avalanches add another constant threat. The mountain's steep snow slopes load quickly after storms. Multiple expeditions have been forced to retreat after snowslides destroyed camps, swept fixed ropes away, or made previously safe sections impassable. Unlike sudden collapses, these dangers accumulate slowly, turning time itself into a hazard. One of the most revealing assessments came from David Lama, one of the strongest alpinists of his generation. He repeatedly identified Masherbrum's west face as one of the hardest unclimbed objectives in the world. Lama once described it as the Eiger North Face with Cerro Torre on top, a comparison meant to convey not size, but sustained technical difficulty combined with constant objective danger at extreme altitude. Lama attempted the west face multiple times, but never succeeded. His focus was not speed or style, but whether the face was even climbable under real conditions. He ultimately regarded Masherbrum as one of the most serious unfinished problems in high-altitude alpinism. Masherbrum's danger is not defined by frequent fatalities or dramatic disasters. It comes from how consistently it resists climbers, even at the highest level. Here, failure is the norm, not the exception. And retreat, delayed long enough, can become just as dangerous as continuing upward. Masherbrum is a mountain that does not need to kill often to be feared. It simply does not allow progress. And as this list continues, the mountains ahead will reduce the margin even further until resistance turns into something far more final. 4. Janu. Masherbrum resists climbers by refusing to cooperate. The next mountain does something else entirely. It offers lines that look possible. Until you're already committed. Janu is not a mountain that overwhelms climbers with size alone. It overwhelms them with commitment. Rising to 7710 meters on the western edge of the Kanchenjunga Massif in eastern Nepal, Janu is dominated by a massive south face that drops more than 3,000 meters almost uninterrupted to the glacier below. From a distance, the wall appears clean and logical. Up close, it becomes something very different. Janu was first climbed in 1962 by a French expedition. But that ascent did not open the mountain. It closed it. Instead of revealing an accessible route, it confirmed how little margin existed once climbers moved onto the upper faces. Throughout the 1970s, 80s, and 90s, some of the strongest teams in the world attempted Janu and failed. These were not exploratory expeditions. The mountain was well known. The problem was that even experienced climbers could not find a line that could be climbed and descended safely. The defining feature of Janu is its south face. A vast wall of mixed rock and ice, it became one of the most coveted unclimbed objectives in Himalayan mountaineering. Multiple teams committed weeks to the face, only to retreat after realizing that progress upward did not translate into a viable escape downward. In 1986, New Zealand climber Keith Egerton died high on the mountain after developing severe altitude-related illness. His death highlighted a recurring pattern on Janu. Once climbers commit to the upper face, there are very few safe ways down. Descent options narrow rapidly, and even minor delays can compound into serious risk. It wasn't until 2004 that a Slovenian team finally succeeded on the south face after decades of failed attempts. The ascent was immediately recognized as one of the most serious Himalayan climbs of its era. Not because of speed or style, but because it demonstrated just how rarely the mountain allows a complete solution. Even after that success, Janu did not become accessible. Successful ascents remain rare, and retreat remains the most common outcome. The mountain's danger is not defined by sudden disasters or repeated avalanches. It comes from how consistently it forces climbers to decide between continuing upward with diminishing options or turning back before it's too late. On Janu, difficulty is not concentrated at a single crux. It is distributed across the entire face. And once commitment crosses a certain point, survival depends less on strength and more on timing. As this list continues, the mountains ahead will take that lack of margin and remove even the illusion of choice. 3. Victory Peak, Jengish Chokusu. On Janu, the danger begins once you commit. The next mountain changes the equation. Here, even success can be fatal. Victory Peak does not rely on technical impossibility to earn its reputation. Its danger comes from cold, distance, and exhaustion, combined over time. Rising to 7,439 meters on the border between Kyrgyzstan and China, Victory Peak is the highest mountain in the Tian Shan Range and the northernmost 7,000 meters peak on Earth. Its latitude defines everything that happens here. Even in midsummer, temperatures can drop sharply, and storms arrive with little warning. Among Russian climbers, there is a saying, "Don't tell me how many times you've climbed Everest. Tell me whether you've climbed Victory Peak." That reputation was earned over decades. Victory Peak was first climbed in 1956 by a Soviet expedition. From the beginning, climbers realized that reaching the summit was only part of the challenge. The routes are exceptionally long, forcing teams to spend extended periods above 7,000 meters, where fatigue accumulates and recovery becomes nearly impossible. Cold amplifies every mistake. Because of its northern position, Victory Peak experiences severe temperatures even when conditions elsewhere might be considered stable. Storms can trap climbers high on exposed ridges for days, draining strength and supplies before descent even begins. Despite these hazards, Victory Peak has been climbed many times, largely because it is a required ascent for the Snow Leopard Mountaineering Award. That frequency of attempts provides unusually clear statistics. Based on available records, the death-to-summit ratio is estimated at around 10%. Roughly 1 out of every 10 climbers who reaches the summit does not survive. Crucially, many of these deaths occur during descent, after the summit has already been achieved. Victory. Peak's danger is not concentrated in a single feature. It comes from length, exposure, cold, and cumulative exhaustion. The longer climbers remain high on the mountain, the less margin they have when conditions deteriorate. Decisions made while exhausted in extreme cold often cannot be reversed. Here, success does not reduce risk, it often increases it. Victory Peak stands as a reminder that danger does not always come from steep walls or unclimbed ridges. Sometimes it comes from a mountain that simply demands too much, for too long, in an environment that gives nothing back. And as this list continues, the mountains ahead will remove even the comfort of distance, replacing exhaustion with something far more unforgiving. 2. Gasherbrum 4. Victory Peak proves that even success can be fatal. The next mountain goes further. Here, the numbers themselves become the warning. Gasherbrum 4 is not dangerous because it is frequently climbed. It is dangerous because almost no one succeeds. Rising to 79.25 meters in Pakistan's Karakoram Range near the Chinese border, Gasherbrum 4 has long been regarded as one of the most technically demanding major peaks on Earth. From the outset, it established a pattern that never changed. The mountain was first climbed in 1958 by Walter Bonatti and Carlo Mauri, ascending the northeast ridge in alpine style under extreme conditions. That ascent did not open the door for others. It closed it. For decades afterward, elite teams returned again and again and failed. Gasherbrum 4 is not defined by a single crux. Its routes involve sustained mixed climbing, steep rock, hard ice, and snow at extreme altitude, where progress is slow and mistakes are difficult to reverse. Every section requires precision, and retreat is often just as dangerous as continuing upward. Because the mountain is attempted so rarely, rescue options are effectively non-existent. Once climbers commit to the upper slopes, self-rescue becomes the only realistic option. Even minor injuries or delays can escalate rapidly. The statistics are what truly separate Gasherbrum 4 from other peaks. Only around 17 climbers are known to have successfully reached the summit. Against that small number, at least 8 to 10 climbers are known to have died attempting the mountain. That places the death-to-summit ratio at roughly 50 to 55%. In practical terms, for every 2 people who stand on the summit, 1 does not return alive. These deaths did not occur because climbers were inexperienced. They happened to teams operating at the highest level of alpinism. The mountain does not punish recklessness. It punishes commitment. Gasherbrum 4's danger comes from sustained technical difficulty combined with altitude, leaving almost no margin once climbers move high on the mountain. There are no easy sections where strength can be conserved. There are no safe exits when conditions deteriorate. Unlike mountains that build their reputation on dramatic disasters, Gasherbrum IV earns its through consistency. It defeats climbers not once, but repeatedly across generations, under a wide range of conditions. By this point on the list, danger is no longer subjective. It is no longer about fear or reputation. It is statistical. And the final mountain will push that reality even further, where danger is no longer just likely, but structurally unavoidable. 1. Mount Gonga, Minya Konka. Gasherbrum IV proves that danger can be calculated. The final mountain removes any doubt. Here, history itself becomes the evidence. Mount Gonga does not earn its reputation through mystery or rarity. It earns it through repetition. Rising to 7,556 meters on the eastern edge of the Tibetan Plateau in China's Sichuan province, Mount Gonga is the highest mountain outside the Himalaya Karakoram system. It stands closer to populated regions than most peaks of its size, and for that reason, it has seen frequent attempts for nearly a century. That long history is what makes its record so difficult to ignore. Mount Gonga was first climbed in 1932 by an American expedition. From the very beginning, attempts ended badly. Over time, approximately 24 to 32 climbers are known to have successfully reached the summit. Against that number, at least 37 confirmed fatalities have occurred on the mountain. Depending on which summit and fatality counts are used, that places Mount Gonga's death-to-summit ratio between roughly 64 and 87%, one of the highest ever recorded for any major peak on Earth. Even at the lowest estimate, more climbers have died on Mount Gonga than have stood on its summit. Unlike some technical peaks, Gonga's danger does not come from a single impossible wall. Slopes reach 70 degrees in places, forcing climbers onto long, exposed faces. Massive glaciers feed constant avalanches, and sudden storms can drop large amounts of snow in a matter of hours. Several expeditions were wiped out not near the summit, but lower on the mountain, where teams believed they were relatively safe. One of Gonga's most dangerous traits is how quickly conditions can deteriorate. Clear weather can collapse into whiteout storms within hours, leaving climbers exposed on steep terrain with no secure anchors and no clear line of retreat. The mountain's reputation among Chinese climbers reflects this history. Mount Gonga is often called the King of Sichuan, not as a symbol of dominance but of consequence. What ultimately separates Mount Gonga from every other mountain on this list is not how it kills, but how often. Fatal outcomes have occurred across different decades, different routes, and different styles of climbing. The pattern does not belong to a single era or a single mistake. By this point, danger is no longer theoretical. It is no longer statistical. It is historical. Mount Gonga does not ask climbers to push limits. It punishes them for trying. And that leaves one final question. At what point does a mountain stop being a challenge and become a risk that no amount of skill can justify? Let me know in the comments.